Hello, welcome to Scratch 3D Printing. In this video, I'm going to be talking about getting started with 3D printing, the things that I recommend for you. Let's scratch to this topic. Here are the things that I would recommend you do more research on or consider going this route. It's just my recommendation, so you can do whatever you want with it. I would assume that you already have done a little bit of research on what 3D printing is, a little bit of how the machine works, and what 3D printing can do. So with that said, let's get into my recommendations. First thing that I recommend for people that are just getting into 3D printing is that if you are getting a 3D printer, I would recommend getting a 3D printer from a well-known brand. Don't make the same mistake I did. I actually made this mistake. When I was first started 3D printing, I want to be, unique, different. So I buy an off-brand 3D printer, and guess what? When that 3D printer breaks down, well, first of all, there's no support backing that 3D printer because that 3D printer, the company does not make that 3D printer anymore and doesn't support that. Secondly, there's no extra spare parts for that specific 3D printer because it's very unique. And so I'm the only one maybe that has that 3D printer, maybe a couple other people, but it's not widely known, so people don't really know what is wrong with the 3D printer. So that's why my first recommendation for you beginners that are trying to get into 3D printing is that get a well-known established brand like Creality, Prusa, Bamboo Lab. Well, I haven't really used those 3D printers, but from what I heard, it's really good. And there are many more other 3D printing companies that is really good and still make 3D printing product today, and also has customer support to help you when you get into trouble. The second thing I recommend is to get a Core XY 3D printer. More specifically, an enclosed 3D printer like the K1 Max, the Kobra S1, or the K2 Plus. There are many variety of enclosed XY 3D printers these days. Why do I recommend XY 3D printers over Bestlinger? Well, just based on my opinion and my experience of using the 3D printers that I have, is that Core XY is a little bit more simpler to use than a Bestlinger. Well, I know it's basically the same thing, right? You load in a model into a slicer, you click print, and then just start printing. But I feel like a Core XY is going to be a lot better in the long run, and it's more versatile. Let me explain why. The first thing of Core XY with fully enclosed is that it's a lot better than a Bestlinger. It's enclosed, so you can print more materials, better temperature control, because that really matters. The second thing is that space. If you don't have lots of space, a Core XY machine is a lot better and more space saving than a Bestlinger. Because look at this, a Bestlinger, the bed moves back and forth, right? So you need rooms at the back and rooms at the front so that the bed can move back and move forward. So if you look at that, the same volume of a Core XY and a Bestlinger, the Core XY takes less space. Even though it's a little bit bigger in size, it still takes less space. A Bestlinger, maybe it's a little bit smaller, but it moves back and forth, which takes extra space. So if you're going to be putting your 3D printer close to a wall like mine here, a Bestlinger you have to put further from the wall because it's going to move the bed back. So that's why I favor Core XY 3D printers over Bestlinger. Plus, a Core XY with enclosed is a lot better. People are buying enclosure for a Bestlinger, and guess what? The enclosure is like huge because it has to have room for the bed to move back and forth. That's my second recommendation of getting your first 3D printer. Get a Core XY with enclosed like the Kobra S1, K2 Plus, or the K1 Max. Oh, and by the way, Creality, their K2 series, I think it's coming up soon. Have not really heard news about it, but I did heard that there's going to be a smaller version of the K2 Plus. I will look forward to that, and maybe that could be your first 3D printer. Who knows? My third recommendation for beginners that are getting into 3D printing is that choose the right software for your 3D model slicing. For me, my go-to slicer is Orca Slicer, and of course there are many more than that, but I found that if you choose the right slicer at the beginning and take the time to learn that software, it will be a lot better in the long run than starting in like a really easy version of a slicing software and then jump to a new one, because that still has the same change from an easier slicer to a harder slicer, or just more complex slicer, but overall better performance better usage if you learn how to use that program. So my third recommendation is, if you bought a 3D printer, then use a slicing software that is like a little bit more advanced, like Orca Slicer. Final recommendation for people getting into 3D printing and or modeling their own model, right? Because that's also 3D printing. You need to have a model in order to put to a slicer and then send it to your 3D printer to print out that model. Picking the right 3D modeling software. For me, my go-to 3D modeling is Fusion 360. When I first started, I used Fusion 360. So then I just keep learning it, using it, and as of right now, Fusion 360 is my go-to 3D modeling software. There are many other more than Fusion 360, and I think there are more better ones than Fusion 360. There's Tinkercad, there's FreeCAD, many other 3D modeling software. Learn one of the 3D modeling software, and then if you want to expand your knowledge of 3D modeling software, then you can from that point on. Most of them have really similar tools and usage, but you still gotta learn them. So that'll be it for this video. My 4 recommendations for people getting into 3D printing: choosing their 3D printer, what type of 3D printers to pick, picking their slicing software, and if you want to model your own model, choose the right 3D modeling software for you and learn it so that you can model anything you want. And literally, I mean anything you want, I always say this, anything you can model, you can 3D print. It does not matter how complex it is. 3D printing can do it. So that'll be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like on this video. Comment down below what kind of tips you have for beginners and what kind of questions as a beginner do you have. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this channel because more amazing videos like this is coming. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, keep on 3D printing.